Hi, my name is Siobhan Jordan and I'm an artist based in South County Carlow. In March 2023, I was invited to apply for YPCE Artists in Residence funding from the Arts Council of Ireland by early childhood education researcher Muireann Ranta. Our practices align in a lovely way as we're both passionate about the importance of children's connections with nature and creativity. We put together a proposal entitled Earth, My Home, Our Home. This project uses the four main pillars of the Earth Charter as a framework for a series of workshops. We wanted to work with the early years students, lecturers and practitioners to co-create art experiences for young children which would allow for connections with nature and art using environmentally friendly processes and materials. At the start of each of our co-creation workshops, Muireann would introduce the group to that week's theme and discuss pedagogical underpinnings of the workshops. I would then bring in practical creative activities. The first theme of the Earth Charter is respect and care for the community of life. For this theme, I wanted to examine collaborative art projects, ways of working together on a common objective. The processes I brought to our co-creation workshop were good and messy, mark making, using lots of found objects, stamping, printing, both mono and gel plate printing. I brought some homemade inks and paints as well as a selection of natural objects to take prints from or to draw or paint with. We had lovely discussions about getting messy, the tactile nature of the materials and how the children might react to them. On a practical level, we spoke about staining of food colouring and allergies in the classroom. Taking the findings from our co-creation workshop, I set about devising a print workshop for our earlier settings. We worked with two settings for these projects, Play Together Creche in Graiguecullen and Graiguecullen Parish Childcare Centre. We set the tables together to make one large table and I rolled out a large sheet of paper to allow the children to all work together. We spoke about nature, the children's experiences with nature in their gardens or in the park. I'd roughly drawn on pathways onto the paper to allow spaces for the children to create their own areas, and I brought in some fern leaves as well as some herbs, rosemary, sage and lavender. In our first setting, I had prepared animal cutouts and put out different textured papers and fabrics to decorate them. The children had great fun adding colour to their natural world and standing the creatures so they could play with them. I also brought in some baby carrots we hadn't harvested last year, and we set about making our own nature spaces using Play-Doh to stand up the trees, printing leaves, painting with the ice rink, and using the homemade prints to decorate the spaces. Water-soluble oil pastels were fun to mix with water and paint, and of course it was great fun to take prints of hands. The standout winner in terms of fun was the ice paint, definitely something to bring back in another project. The second theme of the Earth Charter is ecological integrity, and for this theme I wanted to look at low environmental impact art. The processes I brought to our co-creation workshop were papermaking and weave. Both of these processes are really fun to do and can be set up with minimal cost using recycled materials. Once you have the setup, they can be used with a variety of ages and they can be used using many different themes and materials. Papermaking was really fun. We discussed ways of setting up workstations to suit the children. I'd brought some wildflower seeds with me, so we added them to the paper pulp, meaning the paper can be sown and plants should grow from it. We experimented with adding fabrics, other papers, petals, etc. to our pulp. For our weaves, the participants used recycled textiles, natural materials, as well as threads and wools, with some really lovely results. Going into our settings, I wasn't really sure how the two processes would marry together, but they worked just so beautifully. Again, we put the tables in a big long line so the children could stand and work together. I rolled out a large roll of paper with some flowers and seeds drawn onto it. We spoke about planting seeds and where seeds came from. I brought out some seed heads I collected from my garden and the children extracted the seeds, banging them off the table or picking them out very carefully. There was great excitement of finding some bugs in the seed heads also. The children spent ages just examining the seeds, some under a magnifying glass, and looking at how different they are from each other. Carefully collecting the seeds, the children added it to the paper pulp so they could make some seeded paper. They all made a sheet of round seeded paper so they could give it as a present to somebody. Some of the children hated the texture of the pulp, but most loved playing in it. Weave can be a tricky concept to introduce to children, but the slits I'd put in the paper worked really well, as the paper pieces I provided turned into worms who had to go underground and back up again to help make the soil healthy for our seeds to grow. It was a really beautiful workshop with the lovely synergy of ideas between making seeded paper and weave. The making of healthy soil with the worms, collecting seeds, making paper, planting seeds, growing and decorating their teepee structure that the seeds could grow and flowers could grow up along. All in all, just a gorgeous activity.